Hare Krishna, we are live.
हरे कृष्णा डियर डिवोटीज, आप सबका स्वागत है, आप सबका अभिनंदन है. We welcome you all. Today we will be studying Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 10, Departure of Lord Krishna for Dvārakā. Please join us for Jayaradhamada prayers. Hare Krishna. Krishna, dear devotees. Please join us for Mangalacharan prayers together. Krishna. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Mudiryet Shavatam Swakatha Kṛṣṇa Punya Shamana Kirtanaha Hridayantasto Bhadrani Vidhunoti Suhasatam Nashta Prayesha Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavatir Uttam Shloke Bhaktir Bhavti Naishtaki. Hare Krishna, dear devotees. Today we'll be studying, आज हम लोग पढ़ेंगे Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 10, Departure of Lord Krishna for Dvārakā. Please join us in the recitation of the first verse. And in this verse, Shaunaka Rishi is again posing a question. So this is also very important question. As what is the purpose of this question? और हम लोग से समझते हैं that how by reading Srimad Bhagavatam, how by understanding the glories of Lord Krishna, and through the examples he sets through his devotees, right? So the mercy of the Lord flows through his devotees. That is an essential principle. And even they exemplify how to carry out various activities as representative of Lord Shri Krishna is a great inspiration for all of us. It motivates us to engage in more hearing and chanting and remembering Lord Shri Krishna in our heart, which purifies us. Nashta prayasya bhadreshu nityam bhagavata sevaya. Right? It is not, Srila Prabhupada used to say that, Bhagavad Saptaha, that's a concoction in this material world. People carry out Bhagavad Saptaha in the name of that. They're carrying out. In reality, it should be done nityam, as the scripture says, as the Acharyas explain us. Nityam Bhagavata Sevya. We should read Srimad Bhagavatam regularly, right? Daily. And maybe 2-3 times during the day, morning, afternoon and evening. So it is very encouraging. So let's please join in for the recitation of the first verse, and it has a very short purport. So we'll quickly cover this, and then we'll dive into the 5 lessons we'll learn from this chapter. So, Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 10, Text 1, Verse 1. Shaunaka Uvacha Hitra Svarikta Spradhatayino Yudhishthiro Dharma Bhritam Varishtaha Sahanujah Pratyavaruddha Bhojanaha Katam Pravatta Kim Akarashit Tataha. And this can also be read in another melodious meter. So there are 2 meters it can be read. So this is the second meter. Shaunaka Uvacha Hitva Sarikta Spadhatatayino Yudhishthiro Dharma Bhritam Varishtaha Sahanuja Pratyavaruddha Bhojanaha Katam Pravatta Kimakarashit Tataha. Translation by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Shaunaka Muni asked, after killing his enemies who desired to usurp his rightful inheritance, how did the greatest of all religious men, Maharaj Yudhishthir, assisted by his brothers, rule his subjects? Surely he could not freely enjoy his kingdom with unrestricted consciousness. Purport. Maharaj Yudhishthir was the greatest of all men in religion. Thus he was not at all inclined to fight with his cousins for the sake of enjoying the kingdom. He fought for the right cause because the kingdom of Hastinapur was his rightful inheritance and his cousins wanted to usurp it for themselves. He fought therefore for the right cause under the guidance of Lord Shri Krishna. But he could not enjoy the results of his victory because his cousins were all killed in the fight. He therefore ruled over the kingdom as a matter of duty, assisted by his younger brothers. The inquiry was important for Shaunak Rishi, who wanted to know about the behavior of Maharaj Yudhishthir when he was at ease to enjoy the kingdom. Hare Krishna. Please join us for Guru Pranati. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pristhaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Om Ajnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangum Langhayate Girim Yat Kripatanaham Vande Shri Gurum Dīnataranam. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, dear devotees, आप सबका स्वागत है, आप सबका अभिनंदन है. और आज इस चैप्टर में लॉर्ड कृष्णा, आफ्टर स्टेइंग फॉर अ फ्यू मंथ्स विद युधिष्ठिर महाराज, इज डिपार्टिंग फॉर द्वारका. Yet at the same time, some amazing glories have been identified. Now, as Srila Prabhupada in the purport, he is revealing some amazing analogies. So it is very interesting to just go through these analogies so that when we listen to the various lessons, we can understand them. So बहुत सारे उदाहरण दिए हैं श्रील प्रभुपाद ने, बहुत सारी एनालॉजीज यूज़ करी हैं जिससे हम इस चैप्टर के अंदर जो अमेजिंग लेसन्स हैं, 5 मेजर लेसन्स इज व्हाट वी आर बी डिस्कसिंग टुडे, बट दे आर अनलिमिटेड लेसन्स इन एवरी चैप्टर ऑफ श्रीमद् भागवतम. एवरी सेंटेंस ऑफ श्रील प्रभुपाद इन हिज पर्पट इज टीचिंग अस अ वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट लेसन. तो हमें हर वाक्य जो एवरी सेंटेंस जो है एक सेंटेंस है श्रील प्रभुपाद के पर्पट से, उनसे भी बहुत सारे लेसन्स मिलते हैं. तो because of the time we are going to discuss 5 main lessons today. तो चलिए पहला उदाहरण कर देते हैं. श्रील प्रभुपाद बताते हैं कि जो मटेरियल वर्ल्ड है, इट इज़ लाइक अ फॉरेस्ट फायर. जो मटेरियल वर्ल्ड है, वेयर देयर इज एनी टाइम द फायर कैन कैच अप. एंड जो फॉरेस्ट फायर है, ये किससे हुई है? बाय द कोहेजन ऑफ बैम्बू बुशेस. सो जो बैम्बू ट्रीज आपस में रब करती हैं, सो उसके कारण स्पार्क्स जनरेट होते हैं, एंड दैट्स व्हाई द फॉरेस्ट फायर स्टार्ट्स, राइट. बेसिकली dry bamboo shoots when they rub against each other, तो उससे फ्रिक्शन होता है, फ्रिक्शन से फायर और हीट जनरेट होती है, फायर जनरेट होती है और उससे फायर होती है. तो ये जो फॉरेस्ट फायर होती है, डिस्ट्रॉयज द होल फॉरेस्ट. बट ये जो फायर होती है, अपने यहाँ बैम्बू तो रब नहीं करेगा, इट हैज़ टू बी जनरेटेड बाय समथिंग, राइट. व्हाट इज दैट कॉज ऑफ दिस रबिंग ऑफ बैम्बूज? इट इज विंड, हवा, वेग, राइट. वाचो वेगम मनसा क्रोधे वेगम. सो व्हेन people, they talk, sometimes they are not considerate, they are not in knowledge, but they're talking, right. The tongue always likes to vibrate, as we see many times. It has this tendency to vibrate, and that's why gossip is all over the place. If you look at the TV channels, they are just trying to increase the TRP by creating gossip and just agitating the mind of simple people, and so forest fire immediately starts. Quarrel starts between people, between different faiths, between different nations, between societies. All this is just agitating, right. And this is like compared to as forest fire. So that's why this material world is called Dukkhalayam Ashashvatam. It is a place of misery, and it is also Ashashvatam. It's temporary in nature. So even the quarrel forest, when it's burned down, the forest fire has nothing else to burn, so it also dies out. The very indhan, right, the very fuel it has, which is the wood, after there is no more wood, forest fire is destroyed. But it causes such a big havoc, तो इतना तबाही मचाती है फॉरेस्ट फायर. तो ऐसे ही हमारे जीवन में जो हमारा माइंड एजिटेट होता है किसी और के कुछ कहने से, तो हमें एक्सटर्नल फैक्टर से अपने माइंड को एजिटेट नहीं होना चाहिए, राइट. नित्यम भागवत सेवया और नष्ट प्रायेषु भद्रेषु. जब हम रेगुलरली भागवत का पढ़ते हैं, उससे जो हमें टीचिंग्स मिलती है, उससे जो प्यूरिफिकेशन मिलता है हमारे हृदय का, बाय रीडिंग भागवतम, एंड वी फिल्ड विद जॉय, वी आर फिल्ड विद ट्रांसेंडेंटल ब्लिस, देन वी चैंट मोर अटेंटिवली, विद मोर अफेक्शन, विद मोर अट्रैक्शन. हरे कृष्णा कृष्णा कृष्णा, हरे हरे, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Cheto Darpanam Ajinam. So all the dust from our heart is, the mirror of our heart, it is going away, Cheta, Darpan. Darpan means mirror. और जब हमारे उससे धूल हट जाती है किसी मिरर से, तो वी कैन सी आर रिफ्लेक्शन नाइसली एंड क्या सकते हैं हम अपनी प्रॉपर एग्जिस्टेंस, द वेरी कॉज ऑफ एग्जिस्टेंस एंड वेरी मीन्स ऑफ एग्जिस्टेंस, द वेरी पर्पस ऑफ एग्जिस्टेंस देखते हैं. जीवेरा स्वरूप होया कृष्ण नित्य दास. दैट हम सब जो हैं भगवान के अनन्य भक्त हैं. कुछ जानते हैं, कुछ नहीं जानते हैं. सम नो इट, सम डोंट. राइट? So to be able to know this, we have to engage in chanting. We have to engage in reading Srimad Bhagavatam. We have to engage in hearing Shravanam. Of the 9 processes, Shravanam is the most powerful one. Just by Shravanam, people could remember, all the Shastras in the previous ages. So we should engage as much as possible, because practice makes a man perfect. Dale Carnegie said, yes. So we have to practice, because in this Kali age, we have the tendency to forget. Our senses are imperfect. We have propensity to be delusioned. We have propensity to make mistakes, right? So we should be very, very careful. हम लोगों को बहुत ध्यान से रोज पढ़ना चाहिए, लगातार पढ़ना चाहिए. और इसमें तो बताया है कि once a devotee is, even once, with श्रद्धा कोई सुन लेता है. अगेन हरिदास ठाकुर तो कहते हैं कि जिसने एक बार भी भगवान कृष्ण का नाम लिया है, तो वो भी कंसिडर करते हैं उसको वैष्णव की तरह, यानी नामाचार्य. सो ही इज रेडी टू ब्लेस अस, प्रोवाइडेड वी आर रेडी टू रिसीव द ब्लेसिंग. राइट? भगवान जैसे इन लॉर्ड इंद्र, ही इज कॉजिंग द रेन, बट इफ वी आर इनसाइड द हाउस एंड वी से ओके, I don't think there is rain, we cannot experience it. We have to go out in the rain. Just like when the sun is shining and we are sitting in a dark room, we cannot experience the influence, the effulgence of the sun, and we cannot experience the bliss that comes from the sunshine. जैसे सूर्य जब सूरज उगता है, means again उगता है कहते हैं, it rises, right? उदय होता है on the east horizon. तो जब तक हम बाहर नहीं जाएंगे तब तक हमें सूर्य का प्रकाश का अभाव नहीं होगा, हमें समय एक्सपीरियंस नहीं होगा. टू बी एबल टू एक्सपीरियंस सन, वी हैव टू स्टेप आउट इन सनलाइट टू नो. राइट? एंड जो क्लाउड्स हैं वो एक्चुअली हमको कवर करते हैं. तो एक्चुअली इसके अंदर जो फॉरेस्ट फायर का एनालॉजी है, बहुत ही इंस्ट्रक्टिव एनालॉजी है, विच एक्चुअली टीचेस अस दैट इट इज़ बाय एजिटेटिंग वर्ड्स अदर्स दैट आर टू डिस्टर्ब पीपल. We should not get agitated, we should not agitate. That's austerity of speech. Yesterday we covered in the previous class austerity of speech in 5 factors. Not speaking anything that agitates others. We should be speaking sweet words. Then we should be speaking facts, truthfulness. But the truth should be spoken in a pleasing manner, with the mood that it is benefiting to ourselves and to others. And finally, Swadhyaya Abhyas, which is recitation of the Vedic literatures, the bona fide literatures like Srimad Bhagavatam, Bhagavatam, Chaitanya Charitamrita. So all these literatures should be regularly, recited. तो हम लोगों को एफर्ट करना चाहिए. And hearing से recitation बढ़ता है. That is the process. So it is very important to hear a lot so that we can speak a little. Yet at the same time, that little could last for the whole lifetime. If we are hearing for the whole lifetime, we are constantly hearing. That's why chanting जब कहते हैं तो it is very important कि जब chanting करते हैं, it pacifies our heart and hearts of all others. So again, next analogy इसके अंदर भगवान की जो लीलाएं हैं उनका जब हम लोग वर्णन करते हैं, उनको जो तुष्यंती च रमंती च होता है, right? It is pleasing to all. We all feel satisfied as well as we all take great pleasure. भगवान के जो है past times हैं. And then another example is given, that earthquake, right? It shakes everything. So when you look at the ocean, it appears that the surface of the ocean is like constantly shaking, right? The waves are constantly flowing. But similarly, this literature जो हम पढ़ते हैं, it is constantly exercising our very existence, right? It is causing a strange revolution. So our body is experiencing these waves of emotions, of blissfulness, of pleasure, of love, because Lord Krishna is in the center, right? And peace everywhere, all these positive waves that are causing and being attracted by Lord Shri Krishna and his devotees, great tidal waves come which wash away all the anarthas in our lives. So these are some amazing, the tidal waves, they wash away all the reactions of our sin, right? That's why Lord Krishna is constantly identifying. Bhagwan Krishna Arjun ko Baba bolte hain कि मय स्मरण युद्ध चा, so remembering me, perform your duties. And Arjun का duty क्या था? Kshatriya, to fight, right, on at Kurukshetra. So similarly we all, by remembering Lord, हम लोगों को भगवान को याद करते हुए अपने सारी prescribed duties, अपने सारे धर्म का पालन करना चाहिए, सारी कार्य क्रियाएं उसी तरह से करना चाहिए. All activities should be dovetailed. Now Lord Krishna is Bhagavai Janardana. Whatever we get, we are getting it from Lord Shri Krishna. And in this particular chapter, this question by Shaunaka Rishi is very instructive, because he is saying that even Yudhishthira Maharaj is established, right? He is coronated as king by the mercy of Lord Shri Krishna. So Yudhishthira Maharaj is representative. So all administrators, all authorities, all kings, ministers, they are all representatives. So especially king, because Srila Prabhupada makes a very interesting statement in his purport. A person rules a kingdom, right, or a country, not in a government, because the concept of government is very impersonal, right? So it is a person who takes on the position of president, prime minister, and rules the country. But today's the leaders, they are in name only, right? Why are they in name only? Because they really don't have any power. And the reason they don't have any power is because people have realized that the government is for the people, of the people, by the people. So the democracy system is established based on the time, place and circumstances. क्योंकि बहुत सारे incidents हुए हैं जहाँ पे देखा गया है, when a person becomes the ruler of a country, it goes in a very negative direction. Dictatorship starts, right? Because unqualified persons are becoming the rulers. So even in the position, when we look at the leaders, they should be well trained, they should be very well qualified, and that qualification is focused on the 12 subject matters of knowledge, जो कि श्रीमद् भागवतम में डिवाइन नॉलेज चैप्टर 16 में हमने डिस्कस करी थी, जिसके अंदर three of them are very, very important. One is to engage in Lord's devotional service. So yes, Lord provides his instructions to different faith of people based on the level they are, right? अब आप कोई फर्स्ट ग्रेड का स्टूडेंट है, उसको कैलकुलस तो नहीं सिखाओगे. सो पीपल इन द मिड ईस्ट एंड वेस्ट, दे वर वेरी बार्बेरियन बाय नेचर, तो उनको उसके हिसाब से थ्रू मोसेस, थ्रू जीसस क्राइस्ट नॉलेज स्प्रेड करी. और पीपल हु आर causing a lot of havoc in the name of religion, so उन लोगों को थ्रू मैसेंजर्स मोहम्मद, उनके थ्रू मैसेज दिया. और यहाँ पे तो भारतवर्ष में तो अगेन इन इंडिया, back in those days, there were rishi munis, very highly elevated, pure personalities seeking self-realization. जैसे at Naimisharanya, the great sages were gathered and they were performing yajna, for 1,000 years to ward off the effect of this Kali age. So that was their purpose, to benefit the humanity. So at that level, of course, Lord's message is at that highly elevated level, where calculus appears elementary, right? So ऐसे environment में Shaunaka Rishi is asking this question कि when Yudhishthira Maharaj, उन्होंने अपने he became the ruler of the world by the blessing of the Brahmanas, by the blessing of Dharma, by the blessing of the Supreme Lord, Lord Shri Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He could not have enjoyed unrestricted, because all the people that he could have enjoyed, like Arjun said, that we enjoy in relationship. But when all these relatives are dead, then who will I enjoy this kingdom with? So Yudhishthira Maharaj, rightfully, he participated in battle. He rightfully became the ruler to carry out his duties. So he is showing by his example that a qualified person should be made the ruler, and that ruler still has to carry out as a matter of duty all the things that are expected of an administrator. And that's why Bhagwan Krishna chahte the, that's why Lord Krishna
make sure that he receives the instructions from Bhishma Pitamaha, Bhishma Dev, before Bhishma Dev leaves his body to go back home. है ना, भगवान के पास जाने से पहले भीष्म पितामह ये किस तरह से एडमिनिस्ट्रेटर को रूल करना चाहिए, what are the prescribed duties of the 4 varnas, including that of women and devotees, so how they should be treated, how they should be cared for. So after giving all these instructions, Bhishma Dev, he passed on this knowledge so that Yudhishthir Maharaj वो अपनी position पे properly establish हो सके. Just like Lord Krishna gave instructions to Arjun. अर्जुन को उन्होंने जब उपदेश दिए तो अर्जुन अपने proper धर्म में proper religious principle को समझते हुए he was properly established as a warrior. He was a grahastha, he was a kshatriya, so he carried out his duties very nicely. Similarly now, Srila Prabhupada purport में बताते हैं that Yudhishthir Maharaj also carried out his duties very nicely as a matter of duty, right? Properly following the injunctions of scriptures. And Lord is Bhavgrahi Janardana. So again, this analogy, Bhavgrahi Janardana, is also very important. He understands the mood we have in our heart. So when we approach the Lord, He knows why we are approaching already. He knows what's the purpose. And if our purpose is to satisfy the Lord, He is pleased. Just like people go and they take bath in holy rivers like Ganges and Yamuna. And Ganga river or Yamuna में जाके जब वो वापस जल अर्पण कर रहे हैं सूर्य देव को, वो वाटर वापस यमुना में जा रहा है. एक्चुअली मदर गैंजेस, यमुना जो है या फिर रिवर है या गंगा रिवर है, इनमें जब वापस पानी डालते हैं वो पानी भी हमने उन्हीं से लिया है और फिर हमें उन्हीं को वापस ऑफर कर दिया. But it is still regarded, right? Because she is not in need of water. But we are making an offering of love, in that mode. We are making an offering of feeling grateful, right? We are making an offering of being grateful. हम उनको अपना आभार प्रकट कर रहे हैं कि आप मुझे purify कर रहे हो. You are the shelter. And why are they glorified? Because, Ganges water, because Ganges water washed off the feet of Lord Shri Krishna when he appeared in his Trivikrama form. Vaman Dev Leela में हमने discuss किया था. When he expands his form, that's a Trivikrama. By 3 steps he takes away everything that Bali Maharaj had as part of his kingdom. So, and then he is even bought in that 3rd step by Bali Maharaj. Because Bali Maharaj shows this example of Atma Nivedanam, surrendering everything for the pleasure of the Lordship. So this is a beautiful example. And when we engage in serving Lord Shri Krishna with love, with devotion, we constantly, pleasing to the devotees by serving the Lord and His devotees, then that is our endeavor under Lord's shelter, because we are constantly remembering the Lord. हम भगवान का स्मरण करते हुए, उनको अर्पण करते हुए अपने सारे काम करते हैं. भगवान कृष्ण कहते हैं यत् करोषि यदश्नासि यज्जुहोषि तदासि यत् तपस्यसि कौन्तेय तत् कुरुष्व मदर्पणम मद अर्पणम. Whatever you do, whatever you give, whatever you offer, whatever sacrifices you perform, all our acts, everything, we can perform acts through 3 ways: body, mind and words. All our activities should be dovetailed in pleasing Lord Shri Krishna. So they have to be anukulena Krishna anushīlanam, right? They should be favorable to our devotional service, favorable to serving Lord Shri Krishna as He desires, following in the footsteps of previous acharyas, the great devotees of the Lord. With that mood, when we serve Him, He becomes happy. And so, He blesses us. And then our endeavor will know perfection. Bhagavad Gita classes में हमने discuss किया है. How will our actions be perfect? How will our endeavors be perfect? When we focus on the 5 factors, understand the 5 factors. We, the senses are a factor. The, place, the kind of endeavor we are taking up, that is a factor. The living entity is a factor. The body is a factor. And finally, ultimately, it is the super soul, Paramatma in our heart. An expansion, plenary portion of Lord Shri Krishna, plenary portion of Lord Shri Krishna, as Paramatma in our heart, as super soul, in the heart of all living entities, is also a factor. So when we understand properly, तो हमारा सारे endeavors हैं, they seek perfection. They're wonderful examples. Sometimes people say, अरे कलियुग में कौन से ऐसे example हैं? Then there are examples like Chanakya Pandit. Even though he was the spiritual master, instructing master, as well as initiating master of Chandragupta Maurya, who became a king, right? He was just a boy, right? And Chanakya Pandit observed him that he has all the Kshatriya qualities. Even though born in a low class family, he has all the Kshatriya qualities. So he took him as his disciple, as his student, और उसको उन्होंने इंस्पायर किया, उनकी सारी एबिलिटीज़ को, it is only a realized soul, only a elevated person who can see the qualities in others. Samadarshina also means seeing everyone equally, because Lord is residing in everyone's heart, but also treating them according to their position. And Chanakya Pandit himself was a Brahmana, but he actually challenged the king that he is going to defeat, because the king insulted him, right? They were classmates, and it's very interesting that Chanakya Pandit's and Dronacharya's stories are very similar. Dronacharya was similarly insulted by Draupada, because Draupada was in pride, and so at that time Dronacharya decided, just like Chanakya Pandit decided, that I have to remove this king, he is not a qualified king from his position. But Dronacharya was more affectionate towards his friend, and Draupad was actually a very religious king. He was not the king like Chanakya Pandit's friend, who was completely in pride. He was not even ruling properly. So there was, based on the time, place and circumstances, different examples occur. लेकिन जब Chandragupta Maurya, palatial surroundings में, between luxuries he was ruling, Chanakya Pandit stayed in his hut. He did not change his lifestyle. He kept himself very humble, very tolerant. And once Chandragupta Maurya even dared to ask him, okay, what is the, why did you do this action? So he was Rajguru as well as the main advisor. At that time, Chanakya Pandit simply stated, if I have to give reasons, if I have to justify my actions to you, then I give up this post. Because his motto was to do the right thing. Even if it is painful, even if it is inconvenient, even if it even causes the king to become more tolerant, the right thing should be done. So those are some of the great examples that should inspire us. So here, in the purport, means again, as Yudhishthira Maharaj is being established as the king of Hastinapura, as the emperor of the world actually, after the 3 Ashwamedh Yajnas. So he is a representative of Lord Shri Kṛṣṇa. So a king is a representative of the Supreme Lord, just like the demigods. So he is counted among the various representatives, like Indra is the king of the demigods, and he is also a representative of the Supreme Lord, Lord Shri Kṛṣṇa, to carry out his activities, his ruling, his administration based on the scriptures. So that is interesting that Yudhishthira Maharaj was also known as Ajātshatru, because he did not consider anyone his enemy. Even though he had to live through difficulties, he was constantly a surrendered soul. Similarly, all the Pandavas, not just him, all the Pandavas were surrendered souls. So the great qualities of a pure devotee, of a devotee of the Supreme Lord, has been identified and glorified by none other than Lord Shiva. So Lord Shiva glorifies a pure devotee as how a pure devotee, जो प्योर डिवोटी होता है, भगवान का अनन्य भक्त होता है, he is not affected by the various happenings in life, right? Because just like summer season, winter season, they come and go, agma paino, right? They come and go. Similarly, happiness and distress, they come and go. They are non-permanent in nature. So a sober person, a person in knowledge, a person especially for a devotee, he is not disturbed by all these happenings, because these are the happenings of this material world. That's why it is dukkhalayam ashashvatam. And material energy, it's providing us various kind of bodies based on the desires of living entity. हम जो जीवस हैं, हम लोगों की डिज़ायर के हिसाब से हम लोगों को डिफरेंट बॉडीज मिल रही हैं, राइट? ये तो हमने पढ़ा है. तो मटेरियल एनर्जी को जब हम ब्लेम करते हैं, इट इज़ ओनली डूइंग अ थैंकलेस सर्विस, गिविंग अस व्हाट वी वांट, देन वी आर द वन हु इज कॉजिंग द हैप्पीनेस एंड डिस्ट्रेस इन दिस मटेरियल वर्ल्ड. तो हम लोग को अपनी एक्शंस को भी अकाउंटेबिलिटी लेना चाहिए. हमें अपने समझना चाहिए कि हम लोग हैं इस मटेरियल वर्ल्ड में कॉजिंग ऑल द हैवक्स दैट्स हैपनिंग. So we can remove all these bad happenings in life by taking up to a very simple process, right? It's such a big, troublesome situation, but the solution is very simple. All we have to do is raise our hands and chant Hare Kṛṣṇa, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. So the purpose, why is material world created? Sometimes people ask. There are two main reasons. One is by allowing the devotees who have surrendered to the lotus feet of Lord Shri Krishna, by the living entities who are suffering and who have realized कि केवल एक ही shelter है भगवान के चरण कमलों में शरण लेना. If we take shelter at the lotus feet of Lord Shri Krishna, then we can go back home. So the purpose of material world being created is so that the living entities who want to return back home, they can return home. Second purpose is the materialists who want to enjoy, to give them a playground where they can enjoy, right? But sometimes what happens is when naughty boys, they are given some toys and some facilities to enjoy, sometimes they start to create havoc, and then parents or the administrators or teachers, they have to come in and stop them from doing that, and sometimes punish them as well, so that they behave properly and they don't cause trouble for other simple-minded kids in the classroom or in the play field or in a home environment. So wherever there is some naughty kids can take away some other kids or break things and do this, so they have to be chastised, they have to be told not to do that initially, they have to be then sam dam dand bhed, all these materialistic variety of things, they have to be shown at times. So the whole material creation has been created for all the people who are dusht by nature, right? The demoniac kind of people. उन लोगों को सिखाने के लिए कि ऐसा नहीं बनो, इसी के लिए तो जैसे government they create a jail so that people who are not civilized, who tend to break laws and cause havoc to others, they can be corrected. It's also another name for jail is correctional facility. So similarly, the hells have been created as a correctional facility, so that people who are sinful by nature, their sins, they get nullified. Those reactions are being nullified in hell, and they learn those lessons so that next opportunity they get, they can use this rare human form for the right purpose. And what's the purpose? Krishna Prem, to acquire Krishna Prem, ताकि हम लोग वापस घर जा सकें, वापस भगवान की भक्ति में लीन होकर भगवान की सेवा कर सकें eternally. And every word becomes a song, and every step in that mood is a dance. So at every step we want to be dancing, we want to be jubilant. हम सब चाहते हैं, right? Enjoy करना. So ऐसा क्या कहा भगवान शिव ने कि devotees के बारे में? वो मतलब पार्वती को बता रहे हैं चित्रकेतु के बाद को, जब उन्होंने शाप दे दिया उसके बाद में चित्रकेतु ने कितना मैग्नानिमसली, कितना आदर भाव से मदर पार्वती को एड्रेस करते हुए बोला कि यू मिसअंडरस्टूड बट आई एक्सेप्ट वट एवर यू हैव सेड. So he is not even affected if she has given a blessing, or if she has given a curse, or if she is indifferent. Whatever she has desired, he accepts it. And he is saying that I accept it. So this is the mood as how Yudhishthira Maharaj, even though all the relatives with whom he can enjoy, right? जिनके साथ वो अपने संबंधियों के साथ, अपने cousins के साथ, अपने relatives के साथ, जिनके साथ enjoy कर सकते थे वो kingdom, वो लोग नहीं थे, तभी उन्होंने अपना धर्म निभाया as a matter of duty, अपनी कर्तव्य समझते हुए, right? It is a prescribed duty of a kshatriya, of a ruler, to rule very nicely. उनके समय जब उन्होंने इतना अच्छी तरह रूल किया, it is glorified afterwards in this chapter that everything was perfect. The whole means there was enough rain so that the crops would grow properly at the proper time. The rains were happening in abundance to the quantity it was required, not over flooding, not under the need for the crops. So everything was very nicely. The cows, they were giving abundance of milk, so much so that the milk bags were full, and they were pouring out milk when they were grazing on the ground. They were so happy. So a ruler is responsible to make sure that even the animals, and Maharaj Yudhishthira was not just ruling the land, he was also ruling the seas. That has also been identified. Even the aquatics all over the world, the whole planet at Bhumi, first of all, by engaging in serving Lord Shri Krishna, the Pandavas were serving him to relieve the burden of the earth. The very reason, the purpose of Lord Vasudeva Kṛṣṇa to appear was to relieve the burden of the earth. So Maharaj Yudhishthira and Pandavas, his brothers, they all helped Lord in Lord's mission, right? Funny thing is, sometimes we identify our missions and we seek Lord's help. Rather, we should be saying, my dear Lord, what is your mission? And Acharyas explain that mission is to bring back souls at the shelter of Lord Shri Krishna. That's why preaching is very much needed in this time. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu ne kya kaha tha? Unhone to he proclaimed this prophecy that every street, right, every town, every state, his name would be glorified. So yes, that should happen. Every town, every state, rather every house, every heart, Bhagwan ki glories should be, chanted, should be heard, so that this whole world becomes Vaikuntha. Once this question was asked, how many % of people need to become Krishna conscious? कितने लोगों को Krishna conscious बनना पड़ेगा कि ये जो earth है, ये this planet earth, right, it will become Vaikuntha? Srila Prabhupada का response था only 2%. Only 2%, केवल 2% लोग भी अगर भगवान के डिवोटी बन गए तो ये planet earth will become Vaikuntha. Why to stay 2% though? Start with us, and we should all become devotees of Lord Shri Krishna. And Srila Prabhupada ने तो ISKCON का success criteria, the criterion of success for international society for Krishna consciousness, बहुत ही simple रखा. If one devotee, one pure devotee, can come from the society, then the society is successful. And this is motivating, because when we say one devotee, we all hear this instruction. Srila Prabhupada is giving instruction that we have to strive to be that devotee. Every one of us have to strive, have to make an effort, sincere effort. हम लोगों को अपनी तरफ से पूरी मेहनत करके एक sincere effort करना चाहिए to become a pure devotee, to please the acharyas, to please Srila Prabhupada, to please our Gurudev. So we all hold this responsibility. We are all accountable for our actions with this mood. So Lord Shiva हमको बताते हैं कि कैसे हम लोगों को बिहेव करना चाहिए इस वर्स में. नारायण परा सर्वे न कुतश्चन बिभयति स्वर्गापवर्ग नरकेश्व अपि तुल्यार्थ दर्शिनः. So he is saying that devotees, they solely engage in the devotional service of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Narayan, never fear any condition of life. For them, the heavenly planets, right, Swarga and Apavarga. Apavarga is even liberating above Swarga to go back home, back to Godhead, to the, have Vaikuntha planets. Or to the hellish planets, Narkeshwa, in hell, So, are all the same. They are all the same, which is and their interest is only in serving the Lordship. So, Tulyartha. So, they all consider all the places in this material world and even going back home to be on the same level, because their focus is to engage in devotional service, to serve the Supreme Lord. Rishikena Rishikesha Sevanam Bhaktiruchyate. So, what is the right way of performing our service? Performing our various activities as an offering to Lord Shri Krishna, to please him. So when Lord Krishna is satisfied, then all our senses are satisfied. That's why Lord Krishna says, Satatam kirtayantamam yatantasya dharvata. So again, always endeavoring to please him, to serve him, and yatantasya dharvata. So engaging, making this endeavor with a strong determination, not just determination, a very strong determination, dharvrata. So taking it as a vow, a very strong vow, as a, making a focus of our life to engage in this way. So that has been glorified by Lord Shiva himself. And we should follow, right, the previous acharyas, the instructions of the scriptures. So as Yudhishthira Maharaj is carrying out his ruling very nicely, and he is taking care not just of the human beings but also of the animals and also of the aquatics. He is ruling the seas, so everything has been very nicely. And the importance is given where it is said that the focus of a ruler is to also make sure that even the animals are taken care of, especially the cows and the cultivation. And why is this glorified? It is very important. The whole society is not actually, we cannot eat the nuts and bolts out there. We cannot eat the paper on which various rulings are being made. That's why the basic principle of economic development is centered on land and cows. And if we see Srila Prabhupada, he was establishing self-contained, self-satisfied communities, like in Gita Nagari, New Vrindavan, and West Virginia, Gita Nagari in PA, Pennsylvania. So again, he was identifying to us, just by land and cows, we can sustain the human race and also all other living entities. And in the 18th chapter, the 44th verse reveals that Rishi Goraksha Vanijyam Vaishya Karma Swabhavajam. So in reality, to sustain the qualities, the Vaishya community is responsible. Sometimes people ask, why was not Lord Krishna more glorified as a son of a Vaishya king, Nand Maharaj, and not as a Kshatriya king, as Vasudev's son, as Lord Vasudev more? Well, because he is showing us by example that by engagement in cultivation of land, by engagement in agriculture, right, and by serving the cows, Surbhi Abhipalayantam, and by the trade that happens between spices and various kind of trade elements, clothes also needed, houses also needed. So the trade enables all other amenities, all other facilities. So these three are carried out by what kind of man? Mercantile men. So these are the basis for which, we can easily sustain the society, to self-sustain the society. So again, not like today's time, where people have started opening slaughterhouses. Hare Krishna. And Srila Prabhupada says that that is not a good ruler. That's a sign of not a good ruler. A ruler should be making sure that the animals are also protected, and not allow the slaughterhouses to be open, and not allow the liquor houses to be open. They should all be controlled, and finally with the mood of not just regulating but even eliminating in the process by providing spiritual guidance to the general populace, so that the whole civilization rises. So that's why there is so much need. And Srila Prabhupada is saying always to his disciples that you should go out. So we all take this instruction from Srila Prabhupada and from Acharyas, that it is very important to read Srimad Bhagavatam. By reading Srimad Bhagavatam in the association of devotees, and also allowing those pious people to hear Srimad Bhagavatam, it enables us, जो भी अच्छे विचार वाले लोग हैं, पायस पीपल हैं, जो भी रिलीजियस पीपल हैं, जब वो सुनते हैं श्रीमद् भागवतम, उनका हृदय शांत हो जाता है, उनका हृदय भगवान की भक्ति से भर जाता है, और उनकी जो भी अनर्थ होते हैं उनकी निवृत्ति हो जाती है. उनसे those anarthas, they wash away, just like the tidal wave wash away the seashore. Similarly, these anarthas are washed away जब हम भगवान की गुणगान सुनते हैं श्रीमद् भागवतम में, उनके भक्तों का गुणगान सुनते हैं. तो यहाँ युधिष्ठिर महाराज का गुणगान चल रहा है, जिसमें बता रहे हैं वो किस तरह से एक परफेक्ट रूलर की तरह से रिप्रेजेंटेटिव ऑफ लॉर्ड श्री कृष्ण, वो अपनी सर्विसेज कितना ड्यूटीफुल अलॉन्ग विद हिज ब्रदर्स. सो ऑल पांडवस वर एंगेज्ड. एंड जब भगवान कृष्ण जा रहे हैं, उस समय भगवान कृष्ण जाते हैं, युधिष्ठिर महाराज भीम से बड़े हैं, उनके चरण स्पर्श करते हैं. अर्जुन उनके सिमिलर एज पे है तो उसको एम्ब्रेस कर रहे हैं. नकुल सहदेव भगवान कृष्ण से छोटे हैं तो उनके चरण स्पर्श कर रहे हैं, उससे आशीर्वाद ले रहे हैं. सो दिस इज शोइंग दैट ऑस्टेरिटी ऑफ बॉडी हैज ऑल्सो बीन मेंटेन्ड बाय रिस्पेक्टिंग द एल्डर्स, बाय बीइंग एंगेज in rightful activities, by keeping cleanliness, right, external cleanliness, by taking bath and staying in a pure environment, internal cleanliness by chanting of the holy name, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. All these activities are very important, right? Austerity of mind, body and speech, very important for us to progress spiritually. So at that time, as Lord Krishna was leaving, bidding farewell, it's very interesting that हमारे घर में कभी कभी कोई बहुत ही प्रिय मित्र आता है, कोई भी गेस्ट आता है जिसको हम बहुत ज़्यादा लाइक करते हैं. हम लोग घर के अंदर चाहे आधा घंटा मिले, वो लोग बोलते हैं अच्छा हम चलेंगे. इट्स वेरी इंटरेस्टिंग कि जब हम लोग दरवाजे पे जाते हैं तो कभी कभी 1 घंटा हो जाता है दरवाजे पे ही, राइट? इतना समय अंदर नहीं बैठे जितना दरवाजे पे एक दूसरे से एक्सचेंजेस कर रहे हैं, बातें कर रहे हैं. इट फील्स लाइक वी डोंट वांट देम टू लीव एंड दे डोंट वांट टू लीव अस एज वेल. दिस इज द स्टेट ऑफ लॉर्ड कृष्णा कि ऐसे में even all the residents, so many of the men, they had died on the battlefield at Kurukshetra. So their widows, their mothers, their sisters, they were in this palace, right, at Hastinapur. 100 Kauravas, they were all dead. Their wives, sisters, daughters, and again all other family members, they were there. So they were all, meditating on Lord Shri Krishna. Even Dhritarashtra and Gandhari. Gandhari is referred to as an ascetic in the previous chapter. She was a tapasvini, right? So she had performed a great austerity just by putting, cloth on her eyes that my husband is blind, so I will act like a blind, but I will serve my husband with the right attitude. So she is known as Tapaswini. So ऐसे सारी जो everyone is little disturbed, they are perturbed. समझ में नहीं आ रहा क्या करे, भगवान कृष्ण जा रहे हैं. He is going to go away back to Dvārakā. So they, because of the affection, they are all feeling little perturbed. They are going hither-thither. समझ में नहीं आ रहा है कैसे करेंगे भगवान के एब्सेंस में. बट एट द सेम टाइम दे आर कॉन्स्टेंट रिमेम्बरेंस, इन कॉन्स्टेंट रिमेम्बरेंस, भगवान को लगातार याद करते हुए और ऐसे व्याकुल हुए पड़े हैं. ऐसे में भगवान कृष्ण जब जा रहे हैं द्वारका, तो अर्जुन एक ज्वेल हैंडल अम्ब्रेला से भगवान को छाया में रख रहा है. दुर्योधन का हमने सुना था कि he was so proud that he would not like anything above his head. So even he would remove the umbrella. Scorching heat maybe, he would go without the umbrella because he did not like anything above his head. Not realizing he was wearing a helmet all the time. There's some amazing examples that come in Shastras, that a person thinks only what they want to think, right? But a devotee thinks only what Lord desires, So again, submitting to Lord desire is a great benediction because it gives us a lot of happiness, transcendental bliss and peace of mind. हमें सारी तरह की एंग्जाइटीज, हर काइंड की फियर से कम्प्लीटली दूर रखता है. उसका किसी भी सिचुएशन में हमारे लिए जो भी डिफिकल्टी है, उसका सिंपल निवारण है कि वी शुड मेडिटेट ऑन लॉर्ड श्री कृष्णा, टेक गाइडेंस and follow the Shastras and carry out our duties humbly, with tolerance, yet with full faith, Dhranavrata, right? We should carry out our endeavor, and those endeavors will attain perfection automatically because they are meant to be carried out as Lord Krishna desires and to please him. We are making it as an offering. Every activity that we do, we should make it an offering. So the ladies of many of these personalities, they went to the terrace as Lord Krishna is leaving, and Satyaki and Uddhav, they are fanning the Lordship so that he feels comfortable. So it appears like this is, as the sun has moved to the north, so this is March-April time frame as we normally see, and the sunlight is there and it is warm. And as we know, Delhi gets really warm. Hastinapur used to be, Delhi used to be Hastinapur back in those days. So it really gets hot, March, April starts to heat up. So it was hot. So they were fanning the Lordship so he feels, soothing air and nice environment. And at that time, they're bidding farewell, yet at the same time, the ladies, they're controlling the tears in their eyes. Why? Because they're thinking, कि अगर रो पड़ेंगे तो ऐसे में अपशकुन हो जाएगा. सो जब कोई जाता है तो लेडीज जो होते हैं ना, दे शुड नॉट क्राई. वी ऑल्सो लर्न दिस बिकॉज इट कॉजेज बैड ओमेन टू अराइज. रादर दे शुड बी, they should not let the tears fall, but still the tears were falling because of the affection. But they were trying to control them कि अपशकुन हो जाता है, because everyone should be bidding farewell to their relatives or to their friends and to whoever guest they have, they are leaving the house. At that time they should be treated with smile. Now it's very interesting that scriptures also tell us that when we are going to meet someone and we take an offering for them from the Lordship, if we take prasad and we give them, sometimes they are very quickly saying, okay, everything is done, so you can leave now. So they are telling us when to leave, and we come out of the house, they are saying, okay, bye, and they close the door. We haven't left yet. No words of no sweet words, no proper treatment, no proper goodbyes. This should be avoided, because then that loving connection cannot establish. And sometimes people are happy to let other people go who have come as guests. So that is because of the meager mindset. So again, we have to be very careful. Yes, we should not take the association of mundane people, that is there, but we should give the association. We should sing the glories, we should give them prasad, we should give them things that will bring them close to Kṛṣṇa. So those opportunities are in front of us. So even someone who may be a very materialist, we can please them, and by pleasing Lord, by giving them things that can be beneficial for their spiritual progress. And again, an expert devotee knows how to dovetail it in a manner that the person will accept it with an open arm. So here, very nicely it has been described that Yudhishthira was carrying out his activities, and even on slaughterhouses, there was another example set by Parikshit Maharaj himself. So Parikshit Maharaj heard the whole Srimad Bhagavatam from Shukadeva Goswami. And how did he set the example? When he saw a black man, a Shudra, breaking the legs of the bull, the fourth leg was the only leg, the truthfulness, and he was ready to kill the cow, which is Mother Earth. She was in the form of cow. So this is Kali age. So we'll be hearing more about this incident afterwards. Parikshit Maharaj immediately went there and he stopped him, and he was ready to kill the Shudra. This was none other than Kali, the age Kali age. And this is the next, this is Duryodhana incarnating as Kali age. Yet at the same time, even though it is referred to as Duryodhana's incarnation, it is something that happens as the four ages did come and they have their influence. Yet we as devotees of Lord Shri Kṛṣṇa, we should consider all circumstances, good circumstances, bad circumstances, higher planetary system, lower planetary system. These are relativity of this world. So a devotee rises above the relativity of the world. Brahma Bhuta Prasannatma. He becomes a Prasannatma at that Brahma Bhuta stage, at the transcendental stage. And Mad Bhakti Labhate Param is constantly engaged in loving devotion service. He is not affected by the lamentation. He is not lamenting on the past. पिछली जो उसका ग्लानि में नहीं भरा पड़ा है, he is not. ब्रह्म भूता प्रसन्नात्मा न शोचति, शोक नहीं मना रहा है पास्ट का, न आकांक्षति, और न कि फ्यूचर के लिए आकांक्षा कर रहा है. सम सर्वेषु भूतेषु, understand, is looking at all living entities with equal vision according to their specific circumstances, situations, right? मद भक्ति लभते पराम. भगवान कृष्ण खुद बता रहे हैं कि वो भगवान की भक्ति में लगा रहता है. ऐसे हमें भगवान की भक्ति में लीन रहना चाहिए. अब जब भगवान जा रहे हैं तो उनको प्रोटेक्शन के लिए, बिकॉज ऑफ द अफेक्शन युधिष्ठिर महाराज हैज, लॉर्ड कृष्णा इज द सुप्रीम पर्सनैलिटी ऑफ गॉडहेड, हु कैन हार्म हिम, बट बिकॉज देयर इज अफेक्शन, युधिष्ठिर महाराज उनके साथ 4 यूनिट्स ऑफ आर्मी भेजते हैं, जिसमें चैरियटियर्स हैं, एलिफेंट्स हैं, the horsemen are there as well as the soldiers are there. So it's 4 Akshayanis he sends just, and then Lord Krishna, for a great distance, he is accompanied by the Pandavas, and then afterwards Lord Krishna asks them to go back. Then they return back home. So जब वो वापस आ जाते हैं, but everyone is meditating on Lord Shri Krishna. It is not that when we come back from the temple, that means we forget about God. No, we should constantly be remembering God. So again, इसी ये जो incident है, इससे हमें ये सीख मिलती है. One important lesson we get is that we should be constantly meditating on Lord in all our activities. We should make an effort. And नित्यम भागवत सेवा, जब हम श्रीमद् भागवतम पढ़ते हैं तो हम लोगों को बहुत benefit हैं, unlimited benefits हैं, more than we can even realize. It is inconceivable, achintya. We cannot even perceive the benefits we are receiving just by reciting and discussing Srimad Bhagavatam, the sweet pastimes of Lord Shri Krishna. Now Prada is an important word being used in one of the verses, where ladies, they went to the terrace, right? So sometimes this misconception exists that it was Mohammedans who separated men from ladies, so that this division came in. But in reality, this was always there in our Sanatana Dharma, in the eternal religion, in the old times, where the ladies would go to the terrace and so they would be separated behind the Roshandan and behind some kind of coverings. They would be able to see, and they were able to see Lord Shri Krishna, and they were glorifying Lord Shri Krishna, that Lord Shri Krishna is Supreme Personality of Godhead. He is so blissful, and how he married these queens, and they were glorifying the queens of Lord Shri Krishna, the wives of Lord Shri Krishna, 16,108, headed by, even though his first wife was Rukmini, it is said that the leader of all the queens of Lord Shri Krishna was Satyabhama. Now, why is Satyabhama the leader? Rukmini was very submissive by nature. Satyabhama, as his third wife, because second wife was Jamvati, was the one who went when Lord Krishna went to kill Bhaumasur, and it was through the hand of Satyabhama that he could be killed, because Bhumi Devi is her incarnation, and Narkasur, Bhaumasur, had one boon from Lord Brahma, that he would only be killed by his mother. So it was only Satyabhama, when Lord Krishna showed that, okay, as if something is happening to him, Satyabhama pulled the arrow and shot, and that's how Narkasur was killed. And it was because of her mercy, 16,100 princesses, they were released from Narkasur's palace. So when they were released, they accepted Lord Krishna as their husband, and Lord Krishna accepted them, because otherwise how would they be able to survive in the society? So for their benefit. And many of them were, most of them were the demigoddesses who had actually performed a yajna to become wives of Lord Shri Krishna, and the priest was Ashtavakra. So Sage Ashtavakra was the priest, but his body was bent in 8 places, so when he moved, they laughed at him. So he said that because you laughed at him, you will be abducted when you will appear in this pastime. So they were abducted by Bhauma, so that's what they thought. But they were second time also abducted, and we will be covering that story also later on, by the cowherd man. So here they thought that, okay, this was a curse they had, but actually it was a later one also that happened because of that curse from Ashtavakra says. So we should be very careful that when we see a devotee, we should not judge a devotee. This is also another very important aspect we identify in the purports by Srila Prabhupada. We should not be looking at the external characteristics and features and appearances and the voice of a devotee. Rather, we should be looking at what is this devotee talking about. A fool is recognized as soon as he opens his mouth, and similarly a devotee is recognized as soon as he opens his mouth. Otherwise, if we look from the external features, those are the features somebody may have received, very melodious voice, that ability by mercy of Lord Shri Krishna because of his past karma, right? Very expert way of speaking, also because of mercy of Lord Shri Krishna because of his past karma. Very attractive face, very opulent position, lot of luxurious facilities. All these are because of Lord Shri Krishna by one's past karma also, right? So everything we are receiving is by mercy of Lord Shri Krishna. So he is saying, Parusham Rishu, Aham Parusham Rishu, I am the ability in man. So whatever ability we have been provided to us by Lord Shri Krishna. And when one understands this, that it is Lord Shri Krishna who is the cause of all causes, then they engage in devotional service. So by engaging in devotional service, we put a 1, but otherwise all these activities are just zeros. But when you put 1 to the left of all these zeros, then there is value. Otherwise, zeros on their own, if you add them up, there is no value on their own. So that is a true understanding, and very nice example has been given that, and this is a nectar of instruction, verse 6 को refer करते हुए श्रीला प्रभुपाद कहते हैं that just like when Ganges water becomes little muddy and shows some bubbles on it, general materialists would not understand that the water is still purifying, but the devotees will nevertheless take bath in it. So irrespective of the appearance of a devotee, and his external appearance, his external conditions and his surroundings, a honest person would still serve the devotee with proper faith, by understanding that by taking shelter of the devotee one can attain the love of Godhead. So that should be the mindset. So again, that's why no bodily qualification of a devotee should be considered, because there is no qualitative difference between the Ganges water and the filthy drain water. But when they are amalgamated, when they are showing bubbles and showing dirty, muddy behavior. Yet at the same time, similarly, we should understand that a devotee should not be, overlooked because of having a body born in a low-class family, or because of a body of a bad complexion, or a deformed body, or a diseased body, even an infirm body, that they should be not regarded. So this actually teaches us. Sometimes people get affected by the name, fame and glories of a personality, and even the personality may be saying all kind of rubbish things. People, they enjoy those talks and then they carry out. Sometimes people say, yes, I like this verse where Lord Krishna says to Arjun that do as you like. So we should do as we like. They forget that Lord Krishna is saying that have you meditated on my instruction? मेरे उपदेशों को तुमने समझा है अच्छी तरह से? क्या तुम उसको अच्छी तरह समझ गए? He was ready to speak whole Bhagavad Gita again to Arjun. And then he is saying, if you have so, then you should, if you are properly situated, then you should do what you feel like, right? What you like based on the principles. So we should be living a life based on principles. Otherwise, अगर हम, और ये प्रिंसिपल्स हमें कहाँ से सीखने को मिलते हैं? श्रीमद् भागवतम, भगवद गीता, चैतन्य चरितामृत। जब हम उनको सुनते हैं दूसरे डिवोटीज से, तब हम लोगों को पता लगता है कि अरे दीज आर द प्रिंसिपल्स, दिस इज हाउ वी शुड बी लीडिंग आवर लाइफ, दिस इज हाउ वी शुड बी लिविंग आवर लाइफ एंड मेकिंग इट परफेक्ट. एवरी एंडीवर बूंद बूंद से घड़ा भरता है. सो आवर लाइफ इज a combination of days, and our days are filled with activities. So these activities are what determine where we are. So आज हम लोगों ने काफ़ी अच्छे examples and lessons पढ़े हैं. So let's summarize these. We should understand that reading from Srimad Bhagavatam on a daily basis, Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya. We should read it daily because it is for our own benefit. Right? हम लोगों को बार बार रिमाइंडर आता है भगवान की तरफ से, उसका हमें यूज़ करना चाहिए properly. As an offering to Lord Shri Krishna, we should serve him by devotional service. And even reading Srimad Bhagavatam, a literary incarnation of Lord Shri Krishna, we should understand. Then भगवान जब डिपार्ट करें तो अपना किस तरह से लविंगली एक्सचेंज करें सारे फ्रेंड्स से, सारे कजिन से, हमें उससे भी सीख मिलती है कि हाउ वी शुड ट्रीट ईच अदर. And His Holiness Bhakti Tirth Maharaj कहते थे that we should interact with everyone. This mood that the success of my spiritual life depends on this interaction. So every interaction should be very loving, very compassionate, very giving interaction, not taking interaction, not snatching interaction. कि मेरा इसमें मेरे को इस पर्सन से तभी बात करनी है जब मेरा मतलब होगा. This is a very materialistic thing. We should not be looking at that way. Even if we don't know someone, we can always smile, because smile spreads happiness, right? You walk on the street and suddenly somebody smiles at you, you smile back, because positivity multiplies. It is the very nature, right? And one living entity, when they see another living entity smiling, immediately there is a connection. And unless there is covetousness, the other person automatically smiles, because the spontaneous behavior hai. Then we also learned as how a ruler executes their functionalities. They don't just use words to agitate people and then drive them to the battlefield. They lead onto the battlefield, like Arjun led onto the battlefield. Yudhishthira led the armies onto the battlefield. So that is the mood of an administrator. And they don't do their own, they don't come up with their own theories. They follow the scriptures. They follow the injunctions of the Shastra, just like Yudhishthira Maharaj followed the teachings of Bhishma Dev when carrying out his duties as a ruler. And he carried out so wonderfully that everything is perfect. And then the fourth lesson we learn is when there are calamities in this life, we should take to devotional service. We should take to the chanting of the holy name. Hare Kṛṣṇa, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. We should be reading Srimad Bhagavatam. We should be discussing. And so by doing all these activities, devotional services, we will, be able to face all kinds of difficulties in our life. And finally, the lesson we get is that even though Lord Shri Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, when just like all the ladies and all the relatives are discussing about Lord Shri Krishna, even when he is leaving, similarly, when we come out of the temple, we come home and we are interacting, we should try to remember Lord Krishna at every moment. And even between classes, when we are cooking, when we are working, when we are taking care of household activities, taking care of our children, our friends, and everyone around us, engaging. We are constantly answering various questions, we are constantly asking questions, but we should always dovetail it towards Lord Shri Kṛṣṇa to see, is this of value? And should avoid gossip, we should avoid atyahara, we should avoid unnecessary endeavor. So by constantly hearing, constantly reciting Srimad Bhagavatam, by constantly reciting Chaitanya Charitamrita, Bhagavad Gita, all these books of transcendental knowledge, all these Vedic literatures which are actually literary incarnation of Lord Shri Kṛṣṇa. Lord Krishna Padma says that Bhagavad Gita is my form. The first 5 chapters are his 5 faces. Then the next 10 chapters are his 10 arms. 16th chapter is his stomach, and the last 2 chapters, 17 and 18, are his feet, his legs. So his lotus feet. So we should understand, and of course we should read these scriptures because they are for our benefit. And so this is where we would end. So we covered the 5 lessons today, coming from this chapter, departure of Lord Krishna for Dvārakā. Hare Krishna. Kantra Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai.
Hare Krishna.
Yes.
Thank you very much for this beautiful class where we can understand how by hearing Shravanam and reciting Srimad Bhagavatam,
Hare
we can please Krishna and we can purify, we can all purify. So
Hare
friends,
Krishna.
आप सभी ने ये क्लास सुनी, जिन्होंने थोड़ा लेट ज्वाइन किया वो ये वीडियो बाद में देख सकते हैं। और इस वक्त हम हिज होलीनेस जय पताका स्वामी के लिए वो कोविड से डील कर रहे हैं इस समय, तो उनकी सेफ स्पीडी रिकवरी के लिए इस वक्त हम लॉर्ड नरसिंहदेव प्रेयर्स ऑफर कर रहे हैं। प्लीज जॉइन अस फॉर ऑफरिंग द प्रेयर्स। हरे कृष्णा।
हरे कृष्णा। ग्रंथराज श्रीमद् भागवतम की जय, शिला प्रभुपाद की जय, शिला भगवत्पाद की जय, अनंत कौड़ी वैष्णव वृंद की जय, निताय गो प्रेमानंदे। हरि हरि बोल। प्लीज जॉइन अस फॉर नरसिंहदेव प्रेयर्स।
महाराज की जय, शिला प्रभुपाद की जय, अनंत कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की जय। हरे कृष्णा।
हरे कृष्णा।